Hello, and welcome to SomerKnits, episode 17. This is a podcast primarily focused on knitting, occasionally other fiber arts, and just a place to come together and be a part of the larger knitting community around the world, and just a place to interact and share ideas and the things that I'm working on, and I want to hear all about the things you're working on. So interaction is absolutely encouraged. I love your comments and I like chatting with you, whether it's here in the comments or on Instagram. All of the places you can find me are linked below, including my Instagram and Ravelry. I really appreciate every single person who likes and subscribes and comments. Those things they really inspire me, because I started the podcast just to be part of the larger knitting community when COVID left us feeling all really isolated. And I know a lot of us are still feeling really isolated, and I still don't have like an in-person knitting group. So this is kind of my knitting group now, is just to be here with you all. So thank you. And if you like the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you really enjoy my podcasts, I'd love if you shared them with other people you think might be interested. If we hit some awesome number of subscribers, I'll do another giveaway. But as you're going to find out, this is the episode of the prizes. There is probably more prizes to talk about than knitting, but that's okay, because I am behind on giving those out, and I absolutely do want to do that. So I have used a random number generator to pick all those prizes, and we will get to that section a little bit later. But I'm going to start in first on finished objects. So my first finished object is what I'm wearing. This is the No Frill sweater by Petite Knit, and I made it holding one strand of fingering weight from Woolly Knit from their British wool cones in the color Aran, and one strand of Pancake and Lulu hand-dyed Surrey alpaca silk, and that colorway is called Violet Icing, and you can see that it just came together beautifully, and I get that light purple halo over the creamy sweater, and from a distance you just get a light purple look. I'm going to see if I can show it well. It hits at a really good place. The sleeves are perfect length and comfortable, lots of room in them, not tight sleeves at all, so I can layer under this piece if it's really cold. I did, on the recommendation of Rebecca from the Creabea podcast, when I looked at the ease and the sizes, I did go down a size from where Petite Knit would have had me fall in the recommended ease. So I did knit this on a size 2, even though according to the pattern instructions, I fell more within the range of the size 3 for the intended ease. And I feel like there is plenty of ease here. I did block it out to the measurements listed in the pattern. I enjoyed the pattern. It definitely was kind of one of those where I was pushing through all the stockinette for the end product. It was more about the product on this one than the process, because there's nothing truly interesting about the design to keep you engaged in the knitting. It really is all about having that classic sweater at the end. So the end product was definitely more important in this case, although I really enjoyed using the Surrey alpaca silk and the Woolly Knit cone together. It felt really good in my hands. It was wonderful to knit with. So in that way, it was an enjoyable knit because the yarns I was working with were awesome. But the pattern itself is very simple. My only objection to the pattern is I really dislike when designers don't put a schematic in the pattern, and Petite Knit does list out the measurements of certain parts of the pattern on the first page, but I really like in an Andrea Mowry pattern, or I think most sweaters that I've done, there's a drawing, even if it's not to scale, a schematic that shows the measurements of various parts of the finished object, whether it is the full length or the width across the bust, the sleeve measurement, the sleeve length. I like having all of that laid out in one spot so I'm not having to read lines and find what the measurement for my size should have been at the end when I'm blocking. I like to check through that I've reshaped everything correctly to get the finished object that I want, because sometimes when it's a wet mess, some things like this sweater, I was able to just kind of throw it on the blocking mat and it fell into the appropriate measurements. Whether that's the yarn or the pattern, I'm not sure. I feel like it says more about the yarn. But sometimes, especially like if you're blocking a superwash yarn, things can stretch out of shape, look like a messy pile on the blocking mats, and I like to get everything straightened out nicely and check the finished measurements, because I don't want things to end up overstretched. And sometimes you can tell by looking, but sometimes, especially in like lace work and stuff, you just really, having that schematic is important to me. So that's just one comment on the pattern. I know petite knit patterns are really popular, and a lot of people have made them, so clearly it's not a make or break thing, but there is not a schematic in the pattern if that's something that you look for. My second finished object for the day was one of the things that just kind of lived in my backpack for a while, and it's not folded right now, but it is another Musselburgh hat. Let's see if I can, there we go, get those colors in there properly. So I have a slight change of gauge, as you can see. This Malabrigo was clearly a tighter gauge than the Scattered Jewels, even though they're both fingering weight sock yarns. I should have probably gone up a needle size to match gauge. I have not blocked this yet. I am going to try and block this end out to the dimensions of this end so that I have more of an even hat. Because in order to make it match, I should have gone longer on the second side, but I stopped at the measurement of the increases on this side, thinking the decreases would come out the same depth, and clearly I had not paid attention to my gauge change and it didn't come out like that. So there's a better representation of the colors. You can see that the purple is a nice kettle dyed purple, and then the Scattered Jewels, of course, have that sparkle to them, and you get that prettiness. So I mean, it's a beautiful hat, and I'm very excited to wear it. I like how the purple plays with the hand-dyed yarn, and I think it's going to look really nice whether I wear it like slouchy, like a regular beanie, or folded. But like I said, I am going to try and block that purple to the same dimensions so that when I am folding the brim up, I just have the brim of one color, and then the outside the other color, because I think that makes for a really fun look. And I like the idea of having two hats in one, but it does make for a great just slouchy beanie also. So I'm going to block this after I'm done filming. I just didn't want it to be wet when I tried to show it to you. So this is my Musselburgh hat, and I know I've talked about it a couple times before. So very excited about that one. It's been kind of long-term in my backpack going for a while. The other finished object I have, here's my Riley dog, my little old man dog. My other finished object is a February hat. This is from the Kelborn Woolens Year of Hats that I believe was published last year. It is a really squishy folded brim that you knit together into itself. And I have not blocked this one yet either because I didn't want it to be wet. And I'm trying to decide if I want to put a pom-pom on it. But it's just textured stitches all the way up, and it fits amazing. And the softness of the folded brim, I used sorry for the beeping, a worsted weight Malabrigo, and it is so soft. I know it's going to pill, since it's not plied, it's the single ply worsted, but it is just so soft and squishy and so warm, and I'll show it to you and probably mess the crap out of my hair, but it fits great. It came out exactly to pattern, which I love. Woo! Look at that. And the pattern shows it with a yarn pom-pom. And I went back and forth on whether I wanted to look for a faux fur pom-pom, but I like the look of the pattern photos with the faux fur or with the yarn pom-pom instead. So I think I'm going to go ahead and make one. I had enough left over, and I did get pom-pom makers for Christmas, so I'm going to do that. Obviously, I want to block it before I attach the pom-pom because I don't want to block the pom-pom. But this is also getting a bath as soon as I'm done with the podcast. And it really was a pleasure to knit. Each section is so short. It went by very quickly. It was just 2 days worth of knitting, and not full days, just like as I had time. So it's very quick. The longest part is making the folded brim because you feel like you're knitting ribbing forever. You're going for like 4.5 inches or something before you knit it back on itself. It does require provisional cast on if you're going to do it following the pattern, but it is a free pattern, so I don't feel bad telling you about it. It's just some basic sections of like seed stitch, and then there's a pattern with slip stitches and another pattern with slip stitch. Actually, I think all the patterns are either seed stitch or different slip stitch patterns, but it makes for an interesting look and a more fun hat that knits up very quickly. So this is the Kelborn Woolens Year of Hats February hat if you're looking for it, and it is a free download on Ravelry. I don't know if you can get it straight from the Kelborn Woolens website, maybe. I just know that I downloaded it and printed it off of Ravelry, and it's charted, but the chart is super easy, and every row is charted, so you can just mark them off as you go, and you won't lose track of where you are, and it was a lot of fun to knit. So I do recommend this pattern. I think I'm going to get a lot of wear out of it. I think that it's going to be a staple hat for me. I don't think the universe wanted me to podcast right now because I keep getting interrupted, and I feel like I have to answer the phone because I have a kiddo who was feeling kind of iffy this morning. We COVID tested her. She's negative. And just in case the school calls or it's something important, I feel like I have to stop and answer my phone every time it rings. But sorry about that. Anyway, highly recommend. Excellent pattern. So, works in progress. I have not made any more progress on my husband's DRK everyday socks except for a couple of rows, so there's nothing really to show there. I'm planning on concentrating on those over the weekend and next week, and maybe I can bust those out. But that is my game plan. But for now, I have cast on another sweater from my Make 9. So this kind of replaced the bean and olive sweater in my Make 9 when I decided it really should focus on sweaters I already had the yarn for. And that was like the outlier, the one that I didn't have the yarn for. But I did have this all ready to go. So I've kind of replaced that square in my Make 9 with the No Frills sweater by Petite Knit. So I'm saying I've checked off 2 sweaters from my Make 9 of sweaters I already had the yarn for, and I have cast on a 3rd. And I feel like for it just being the beginning of February, that's doing pretty good. Although I know as soon as the weather gets warm that I am going to want to switch to warm weather knits. And I totally know that about myself. And that separate Make 9 video will come in the spring. But for now, I have cast on the Rainy Day sweater. And I will put the name of the designer below because I'm terrified of mispronouncing it. If anybody knows how I should pronounce her name, please let me know. But I have finished the lace work, and it's very hard to show because the cable needle is not long enough and keeps trying to curl up on me. But this is the Rainy Day sweater, and it has a lace pattern at the top. It's 2 different charts. There's one chart for this pattern that it uses like yarn overs and purl bumps, and then there is a separate chart for the next section, and I don't know that there's any good way to show you this, but maybe you can see some of those stitches in there, and I really think you're not going to see the full beauty of this lace until it is blocked, because lace just it needs that blocking, that soaking to open up and really show you everything. But it's called the rainy day sweater because the patterns are reminiscent of like raindrops on a window. And so I did the short row shaping in the back. You can see that this is the center back. So there's a full section of short row shaping before you start the lace work. And you can see that it's kind of significant because at the front, the section of stockinette before the lace work is very small. And according to the pattern, I am ready to separate for sleeves. And I know it's lace. I know it needs to be blocked. I know it needs to open up. I'm just so nervous that it looks so small. So I am planning to put it on, I have some of the knitting barber cords, and I was thinking that I would go ahead and block the yoke. I've never blocked my yoke separately before, so if anyone has tips on doing that, I was going to go ahead and block the yoke and try it on and make sure it really fits before I move on and split for sleeves, just because I'm so nervous about it not being big enough. And the last thing I want is for it to be super tight up here and uncomfortable, because I adore this color and I really want to wear this sweater. It is also maybe the softest sweater I've ever made. I'm not sure. I mean, I've worked with some beautiful yarns, but the fingering weight yarn is a merino silk blend, and the fuzzy is another Surrey alpaca, also hand dyed by Pancake and Lulu. They're both hand dyed by Pancake and Lulu. I'm going to try and get them out without too much noise. I haven't caked up the next skeins yet, but this is the merino silk, and it's just so soft and beautiful. It's got a lovely sheen to it that you can even see through the Surrey alpaca, and you can see that the two, let me show them to you together. Even though they are the same colorway, you can see how they take the dye differently. You can see how the merino silk has soaked up more blue and is just super shiny, and then the Surrey alpaca has a little more of the red to make it a bit more purpley, but they're both, they're both the color Periwinkle in Time, which I think is really cute. The Pantone color of the year is Periwinkle this year, and I'm super excited about that because clearly I'm having a purple phase. But I'm loving these two together. I want to do something else sometime with the merino silk single by itself. Although I feel like putting it with the Surrey alpaca is going to hopefully help with pilling that you would get from a single and give it more strength because of the silk in the Surrey alpaca. This pattern, the rainy day sweater, actually calls for 2 strands of mohair and a fingering weight. But I wanted to use the Surrey alpaca. And even though a lot of people classify Surrey alpaca and mohair the same, I feel like Surrey alpaca knits up thicker than mohair. It's almost closer to fingering than to lace sometimes. And so I did swatch and block the swatch, and I feel like the fabric I'm getting is what I want. And yes, it's not so dense you can't see through it. You can see the window behind if I hold it up to the light. But it's also not like gossamer sheer. It definitely, it has enough structure to it because this is supposed to be a floaty, lightweight, pretty sweater pattern. She does show it in a cotton, I think, also in like a summer blend yarn in a short sleeve version. But I definitely wanted the billowy sleeved winter version because it has almost like a puff sleeve that then comes in at the cuff. And it's just, I'm really excited for it. So rainy day sweater is my only major whip right now. Like I said, husband socks are full on this weekend and pushing forward. I am focusing on those, and then I actually want to get back to socks I was doing at the very beginning of the podcast, which seems very silly. but I have the clearly determined socks on my needles, and I finished one, and I think that I'm like still on the cuff of the other, which is really silly. And then I started those vanilla socks in um, September. Started those in September when we went to the Winfield Bluegrass Festival, the Walnut Valley Music Festival. And I want to get back to those as well. So while this is blocking, I think it's all about the socks. And then I'm going to try and focus on the husband socks before I come back to this more. I love and adore this, and I just can't wait to have it. But I do need to give those some time and attention because I do want to give them to him as soon as they're done. I think that is it for my knitting. I do have one acquisition, and then, sorry, I have Surrey alpaca in my nose now. And then I do have a bunch of prizes to give out, so I'm very excited about that. So my one acquisition is my Southern Skeins yarn subscription. She did send me her mood boards for a few months because I was nervous about did I want the sock box or the not sock box, and I really couldn't decide. I went with the not sock box again. So this is a sport weight yarn. It's called Snowbird. It's the January yarn. It's on a merino nylon blend, 328 yards to 100 grams. It's looking brighter on screen than it is in person. It's very muted, but really pretty. There's tiny flecks. I don't know if you can see them. Let me see. There's tiny flecks of like some like peachy pink in there every once in a while. And then almost like, I'm not sure if it's supposed to be a charcoal or a navy. It falls in between, and the green and the cream. And I really like it, but my 6-year-old walked by and commented on how much he liked it, which I thought was interesting. So, not sure what I'm going to do with these yet. They do feel pretty fine for a sport weight. Like when I got them originally, I really thought it was fingering weight. It says sport, but I'm going to have to swatch it because it feels, and yeah, if it's really 328 yards to 100 grams, it probably is a sport weight. It just feels in the skein so much like a fingering weight. And then the not sock box this time came with, sorry for the crinkle, a little bird stitch marker. Isn't that cute? Stitch marker / progress keeper because it does open. The tea this time was chamomile, which is really nice for a cozy winter night. And then a sample size packet of Eucalyptus in the eucalyptus scent, which I don't think that I have used the eucalyptus scent. She may have sent a sample packet of that one before, but sometimes I forget to grab my sample packets when I'm blocking because of the bottles that are already sitting there by the tub I use to block. So I do need to probably use some of my sample packets before they just sit there too long. The pattern that came with the yarn this time was the Argo beanie, and it says it's knit up in a sport weight yarn, and it is a Southern Skeins pattern. So it would only take one of these, and I'm not even sure it would take the whole thing because I don't think you'd need a whole 100 grams of sport weight to make a beanie. But this was the not sock box. I did order the sock box, I believe, for February, just based on looking at her mood boards. So I like surprises, so I don't like to 100% know what's coming, but I've been getting her subscription long enough that I feel like she kind of knows which ones I like and which ones I don't. So sometimes I say, which one should I order, the sock box or the not sock box? Which of course I did this time. So that was it for acquisitions. How good was I this time? Really trying to knit up my stash. That can be hard because there are so many beautiful yarns out there, and social media makes it even easier to see all those pretty yarns. And I get really tempted. So yes, did very good this time. That's it for acquisitions. So I do want to get into the giveaways real quick. So in the fall, we had the SKElfmailKAL, which I didn't even finish, but some of you did, and that's awesome. We had the Finishalong, which was inspired by my basket of unfinished things, and also the fact that I was trying to finish my sweater, the sweater I was making for my dad that I had started back in like 06. So all of those things came together, and we had the Finishalong. So I have drawn the prizes for both of those. I have also drawn the prize for, in a couple videos ago, if you made it through that whole thing, I talked about stash sharing, and I have drawn the stash sharing prize as well. So let me grab my paper because I used a random number generator to do this, and I have written down everything I need, and I will pop these on the screen as well. But there are two prizes for the Elfmail Knit-Along because we had prizes donated by Crafty Knitter 7, who has her online store. Oh gosh, hold on. How have I forgotten the name? Tangled Skein, sorry. So we have these sock bags. They snap, and you can unsnap them and fold them over. I know that Inga of Knitting Traditions has showed them on her podcast as well, but the bottom sits flat and it'll sit up while you're knitting. She also sent for each sock sack a set of stitch markers. This one, there's a pom-pom marker and then the little markers that go with it. And I like that because you can use the pom-pom for the beginning of the round and then the little ones for the pattern repeats. So just to show you what can go in the sock bag, this is the one my husband's socks are in. And I keep it snapped regularly most of the time, but if I'm really worried about stuff falling out, I follow what Inga said and I cross snap it. So you can do that if you really want stuff to stay in, like, so that is definitely an option, but nothing in here is going to fall out right now. So I have the socks, which I stopped mid-round, and I shouldn't do that, but also 2 full balls of sock yarn, plus the pattern folded up, and everything fits nicely in there. And I have room if I needed a tiny little notions pouch in there too, but that is the little sock sack. So I have 2 of those, one for the Finishalong and one for the SKElfmailKAL. So this one is for the Elfmail Knit-Along, and Lori Lamont won that drawing for her Elfmail. So contact me. My email is below, and get me your address so that I can send this on to you. Next up, we have the second Elfmail prize, which was a donated pattern by Danny Miga. She's the designer behind the Elfmail, and she has another pattern that is a beautiful sweater meant for single row striping, and I'm gonna make it at some point. Like, it's really pretty, and I want to do it. And now, like, the name of it has escaped me, so I'll put it down here. But she had said at the beginning of our knit-along that she would be happy to donate 1 copy of her other pattern as a prize for the knit-along. So I think if you have Ravelry, you can send me your username, or if you do not use Ravelry, you can send me your email address, and I will pass that on to Danny, and she will send you the pattern. So I don't have it. She is going to send that directly to you, and the person who won the Elfmail pattern is username Hurt Vonnegut on Instagram, and I'll put that below also, but please contact me either via Instagram or email, or somehow let me know where to get that sent to you. And then we have another prize. This one's for the Finishalong, so this is the other sock sack, and it is a mitten pattern. And I really appreciate Sue donating these from her shop. So if you could visit her shop and just take a look at what she has, it's the Tangled Skein, and I will link it below in the description box and put it at the bottom so that you can find it easily. But she has a lot of fun patterns and different sizes. This is not the only size in the shop. So this is another sock sack, and this one came with a red set of stitch markers. In there is a tiny little stocking cap and then the red beaded ones. So you have your end of round marker and then your pattern repeats if that's how you like to stitch marker things. That's how I do it. But so this set goes together, and the username of the person for the finish along is vshaw7. And I believe that was the Ravelry username. So please contact me, whether it's a message on Ravelry or an email or a message on Instagram. Somehow get a hold of me so that I can get you your prize. And then I have one more prize, and that is the stash sharing prize. So I have a couple of options for our winner from stash sharing. And stash sharing, right now I have a bunch of cones. Some of them are mystery cones, some of them are labeled, and I am not going to get through all this yarn like myself at all. Like it's never going to happen. If you're familiar with the term SABLE, stash acquisition beyond life expectancy, I have achieved that probably. But I wanted to share some of that with people, so I have a couple of options. There is this mohair and wool blend, and this color is not showing accurately. It is, let's see, it's still not accurate. It is like a burgundy wool and mohair blend, and I don't know why I can't get the color right, but it's a beautiful deep burgundy wool and mohair blend, so it's not going to be as soft as a mohair silk. It is still soft. Like, I don't think it's too bad, but it is going to be a little bit scratchier because it is a mohair wool blend. And that is all I know about it. I mean, it's lace weight, but the tag just says wool mohair blend. There might be a little bit of acrylic in it. I'm not sure. But this is 100 and I weighed it right before I came down here. 117 grams, I want to say, or something like that. It's a lot. It's a lot of lace weight mohair. So it is this beautiful burgundy. I'll try and take a picture of it and see if I can get accurate color. So this is one option. So at 117 or 18 grams, there should be enough in here to do whatever you want. Because usually lace weight silk mohair comes in either 25 or 50 gram skeins, and you get usually what, like almost 500 yards to 50 grams or something like that. So well over 1,000 yards, I would think. But I have this as an option. Or if mohair is like definitely not your thing, I have this lace weight marled 2-ply. So it is very fine. And let's see if I can get it to where you can actually see. So it is a marled 2-ply. So 1 ply has the lighter color, and 1 ply is more of a solid tan brown color. And it is also a lace weight, but it is super soft, like really, really, really soft. There's no mohair in this one, and there's 105 grams of this. So you can absolutely take your choice in stash sharing, whether you would like this brown marled 2-ply, which I believe is still like a lace weight, or this burgundy wool mohair blend, which I think was 117 or 118 grams. So a good amount of yardage, since it is lace weight, either way. Totally up to you. And the winner for that, because you've all waited so patiently, was Carrie Hahn. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, but I'll put it right here, and you can get in contact with me, whether it's email or on Instagram or on Ravelry. Somehow get a hold of me and get me your address and tell me which of the yarns you would like best so that I can get those shipped out to you right away. I love giving out prizes. I think it's almost more fun than getting stuff. I mean, almost. I just like to share. So I'm really excited to send these off to a home, and maybe whichever one isn't chosen, I'll draw from the comments this time, and that one can find a new home too. So there's no reason for me to keep all this yarn that I'm just not going to be able to get to at all. I should have brought it down to show, but it's still attached to a huge skein. I have a whole bunch of like old baby acrylic from like my college knitting and crochet days, like a million years ago, I think. Otherwise, I repurchased some of the same yarns, which seems kind of silly. But they're like super baby colors, and I don't even know if they make them anymore. And they have like a shiny strand that runs through a more bumpy yarn in like pastel green and pastel yellow and pink and lavender. And they were all just like sitting in a bucket that I've been contemplating whether I'm going to donate some of that yarn like to the elementary school. But I have all these wreath forms also, and I decided to make myself an Easter wreath. But I know that sometimes it takes me a little while to get things like that done because I get so focused on my knitting that it seems like I don't get to those other projects. So in order to make myself an Easter wreath, I went ahead and started this weekend, and I have wrapped the wreath itself in the baby pink so far, just around and around and around and around. And I am going to layer in some of the other colors, but then I also want to find like a knitted or crocheted Easter egg pattern or something to make and attach to it, or maybe just some kind of baubles or something, but something where it's not just a flat yarn wrapped wreath. I want to put some things on it. So if you have ideas or recommendations, throw those in the comments, because I'm going to be looking for some tiny little things to make and attach to my Easter wreath. And it says it is sport weight yarn. So keeping that in mind, I don't mind holding it double or even triple if it's meant for bigger yarn, but definitely can't do like a lace weight pattern with it because it is sport weight yarn. So, and I'm not going to use it for like a garment or anything. So I thought a fun way to use it, because I do love Easter colors. I thought a really fun way to use it would be to make myself a wreath. So I will try and remember to show that on the next podcast, but it is like stuck to the giant hank of pink upstairs right now, and I didn't think to bring it down. I'm trying to remember if there was anything else that I've been intending to share and just totally failed. I did take footage last time I podcasted at Knit Stars, and I totally forgot to attach it to the video. So I can throw that on at the end if anybody is interested in seeing one of my local yarn stores. I'm hoping to visit the other one, which is Get Stitchin', for their Valentine's sale on Friday with my mom real quick, because she is potentially in the market for a little more yarn. She's been knitting up some hats, which is fun. So just life chat, I guess. If you are not here for that, then thank you for coming and just being a part of my knitting community. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe, because it just gives me all the warm fuzzies and makes my day. But it's been a rough month as far as the kids have been out of school a lot, off and on, due to COVID exposures at the school and just whole classes having to be sent home, and that's been hard. They are both at school today, which is good. And that's why a lot of times I feel like I'm not very prepared when it comes to podcasting, because I don't know until that day if I'm even going to get to, and I haven't been making great notes recently, and I need to get better about that. But I think things are improving locally, I hope. I think things are improving at the school. I think that we had some snow days last week. At the end of the week, it snowed here, and Oklahoma is just not very equipped for snow. So if they think it's going to snow, then they close school and the kids don't go, which is, I know, really weird to those of you who live in places where there's like a lot of snow, but our roads and stuff are just not equipped for that. And people are incapable of driving in it, so they just cancel school. So we had 3 snow days at the end of last week. They did have to have some virtual schoolwork, but there were snow days, which I think helped break the cycle at the school of outbreaks and quarantines and things. So hopefully, fingers crossed, they stay in school now. It's been... My son, who's in 1st grade, has never... I mean, in preschool he did, but it was the obligatory camera freeze, because there's one every episode. Since starting like real school-age school, my son has never had a normal school year. And I know that's true for a whole lot of children, but it just, it makes me sad for them and also a little worried. But, you know, he didn't get all of they couldn't take field trips, and they couldn't do a lot of the things that my daughter's classes did at a young age. So his pre-K year and his kindergarten and 1st grade years have been completely disrupted by COVID. I think there's actually been more quarantines for his class this year than there was last year, which is kind of sad and scary. But I hope at some point that he can have an actual normal school year. And I don't know if the disruption in school has made him less interested in it than my daughter. She does not like to miss school. She loves school. She loves being there with her friends. And I know that my son loves school once he's there, but he could kind of take or leave going in the morning. The days he finds out that his class has been sent home, he doesn't seem to care nearly as much as she does. And I don't know if that's just because he's never had that school is an everyday thing ever. And I want him to have that love of learning and that love of being at school. And I just want him to have a regular school year. I do know he loves his teachers and he does enjoy his friends there, but it's definitely been harder on our little ones, I think, to get into a school groove that have never actually had a full school year. So my hope for the future is some normalcy for these kids. It's hard when my daughter talks about, like, it's been 2 years since we did this, or it's been 2 years since we did that. And feeling like I'm going to run out of her childhood before we're able to do some of these things again. I don't know if you feel like that, commiserate in the comments or something. What do you do if you have kids, what do you do to enrich their lives during this without just throwing caution to the wind and saying heck with it all, because there is still a pandemic going on, and I know that's not going to happen. We try and get outside and we try and go camping and do things with them, but it's still like the parties and the sleepovers and the things that were totally normal before COVID hit and then just got whisked away from these kids. It's been hard on them, and I know she's old enough to, like, she understands she could get sick, but not not enough that it makes all of us frustrated and sad. So I shouldn't say that has to do with her age, because I started this podcast because I really miss people, and I don't have an in-person knitting group, and I want people to talk knitting to, and I want that engagement with people. And yes, she has school for that now, which has really helped. She did not do well during isolation at all, like when people were not going to school or work or anything. But she wants that social time. She wants play dates every weekend and things like that, and it's such a hard balance. And I know everybody has had to make the choices that are appropriate for them, and we're all just doing the best we can right now. But I have hopes for normalcy again for these kids, and for us, and for hopefully in-person knit nights, and Galentine's dates, and friends for coffee and things like that, because it's been a long time, and I hope we can all get that back. That's enough about the COVID, because it's depressing. It's very depressing. Yep. I don't have much else going on other than, all the normal mom things, the laundry and the doing and the keeping up with kids stuff. We are, thankfully back into kid activities and things like that, but makes weeknights kind of busy and stuff. And I feel like the productivity that I had in December and January with my knitting is going to taper off a little bit as some of those things ramp up. And that's okay, because I really do want more going on outside the house and more social life and all of that. Also, I was sick enough in January that I didn't get up and exercise in the mornings, which I think has taken a toll, but it positively impacted my knitting because I got more done, because I spent that time watching podcasts and knitting. But I need to get back to the actual working out, and I have signed up for a triathlon boot camp. It's a triathlon I've done before, and it's considered a sprint, so it's a very short triathlon. And it's not much. It's like a 400-meter swim and a 12-mile bike ride and a 2-mile run. But I do need to get back to exercising, or those things will kill me, even though they don't sound like very much. So time to get back into it now that I can take deep breaths without coughing and just feel a lot more normal throughout the day. So I am thankful to be on the other side of that hump, hopefully. So anyway, that's really it. I don't have any more knitting chat or life chat. I have sweet doggies to pet and a house to get under control before the kids get out of school. So thank you so much for joining me, and I really look forward to talking to you all. Feel free to look me up on Instagram. I am open to your messages anytime, and thank you for being here.